What's up everybody and welcome to the channel. Today we're going to take a look at the new 2024 Honda Prologue. This one is an Elite all-wheel drive, finish off in Pacific Blue Metallic. MSRP is just under $60,000. Now one thing interesting, this is actually built by General Motors in their North America plant with the Chevy Blazer EV. So technically this is actually a GM. Underneath you'll notice a lot of the buttons, the key fob, things like that are all going to look very familiar to a GM product. But nonetheless, this is basically the twin of the Blazer EV. So if we take a look at some of the specs though, for this electric crossover, you're going to get an 85 kilowatt hour lithium ion battery pack. And then with the motor's power, you have 288 horsepower with 333 pound-feet of torque. It is all-wheel drive. Max cruising range is around 273 miles. And then curb weight is 5,200 pounds with towing capacity at 1,500 pounds. For styling, it's a pretty neat looking car. You can see a lot of the Blazer as far as just the shape and style. However, this of course has Honda's own design language, and I think it looks really good. You got a nice set of LED headlights with a black trim surrounding it that fades into the gloss black upper section. Got the Honda logo, forward facing camera, parking sensors, safety sensor, and some areas right here for cooling to keep some of the electronics nice and cool. Got some gloss black and silver trim down below, LED fog light, a nice little functional air inlet, and I do like how smooth all the bodywork is. So it's a pretty good looking car. You have some nice sharp lines on the hood as well. And then at the side, I love these 21-inch wheels, really cool looking. You got this multi-spoke design, and you can also see just the machine silver with the gloss black. Got some gloss black trim surrounding the wheel arch, really smooth side profile, more of the gloss black down below, and then gloss black on the door handles and mirror caps. This car is also a pre-production model, so you might notice maybe a few things that aren't exactly ideal for production. You have gloss black throughout all the windows, roof rails up on above, and even a panoramic sunroof. Side profile is pretty sharp. I do like how the rear end kind of cuts off abruptly, gives it a more sporty vibe. The color definitely pops in the sunlight. And then you can also see some gloss black throughout this rear spoiler. The taillights match the headlights too, with that black trim, and then it fades into the gloss black in the center. Kind of interesting with Honda written out, the H is capital and everything else is lowercase. Normally everything is always capital, so kind of interesting to see how they've written that out. You got Prologue Elite on the left, the E logo with all-wheel drive, parking sensors, backup camera, some gloss black and silver trim, and I think it really does look really good. This is one of the better looking electric cars, I would say. Some are definitely weird looking. I think this one looks pretty nice. Now, taking a look at the key fob, which kind of funny where the Honda logo is, you can almost tell like it almost maybe used to have a Buick logo or something like that. But we do have the power liftgate. You can pop that open. And then we have a pretty large area back here. Nice flat load floor, and I do like the hidden storage space. Got a charge kit, really deep area right there. So certainly a super usable rear area. Now for the seats, you can grab these handles and easily pop them forwards. And you're gonna see just how much more storage space you're gonna get. We have a handle and then the button up here. We can go ahead and close that all up. For the rear seats, you can see them folded down nearly flat, maximizing all the cargo space and then popping them back upwards. You have two different recline angles, so really small. So right there and right there. So about an inch different, not really all too crazy. And when you just throw the seats back, you kind of miss it anyway. So nice recline overall. In the center, we have two cup holders and an armrest, climate vents, storage, a few plugs, extra storage right here. And I do like the gray and black two-tone with contrast stitching. Got the gray and black along the door panels as well, has a nice look to it. And then hopping in at 5'11", this is pretty roomy. Really good legroom and knee room with the driver's seat at my height. And then a pretty good view around. The recline's pretty good, however, my head just barely touches the ceiling a little bit, so I wouldn't mind at my height just a tad more headroom. You are sitting pretty far back in the car, windows are way up here, and you're kind of right behind the pillar. But nonetheless, overall, this is a pretty good family crossover. Really wouldn't have too many complaints sitting back here. As you make our way to the driver's seat, you of course have the button right here to lock and unlock it. We have the charge port over on that side. similar door panel that you saw in back, and you can tell that these are all like GM buttons. So kind of cool the way Honda has done it with the collab. Electric cars are very, very expensive to build, so it kind of works, kind of doing the same approach that Toyota has done, where they're not truly developing their own electric cars, which honestly is a pretty cost-effective way to do it. Now inside, foot on the brake. Turns everything on. Gonna get a few chimes for a little while without your seatbelt on. And then just a nice look at the steering wheel. You have cruise control settings on the left, Bluetooth and audio on the right. You can configure the screen a little bit, full screen nav, some cruise control settings as well. So nice setup overall. Silver trim, black leather, and then you can see your gear selector on the right. So my foot on the brake, that's how you go into drive, and then reverse, the opposite, with a P button for park. Turn signals on the left, all the windshield wiper controls, and then on the screen you do have some more information, your charge, your percentage, range, as well as the speedometer, of course. So nice setup overall. We have a little battery indicator over here with a paddle shifter, and then you have some controls down below. We have sport mode, lane keeping, electronic park and brake, one of your air vents, and then more of this smooth material across the dash with heads-up display. You can also see more of that over on the right side, some plastic trim for the air vents with some gloss and silver. And then the infotainment screen, pretty simple overall. You have settings right there, some Bluetooth, nav, audio controls, and then right here you have a few more. Going to your home icon, you will get Apple CarPlay, Android Auto, a few other settings. You can easily scroll right and left. Then we have our cameras. You have a front view as well as a rear view, top down as well. You can toggle that. Top down for the front and rear, take a look at all of that, and then a good look at different views. So nice setup overall. Once again, you can see the GM in all the buttons, so kind of funny to see that paired to a Honda badge, but nonetheless, not a bad way to go. Got your dual zone temperature control, heated and ventilated seating, all your simple controls throughout this center. You can also pop that up on the screen, which is a nice touch. And then of course, when you go into reverse or anything, all those cameras are gonna pop up very quickly. We have plugs and then storage all down below. 2 cup holders in the center with a wireless phone charging, extra storage all down below, and then more storage throughout the center. Got the gray color with contrast stitching, and then a nice glove box. One last look at the interior. I think overall it's a pretty nice interior. It looks very simple, nothing really too flashy, but not a bad place to be. Got a thin mirror, all your controls up top for the sunshade, the glass, the OnStar, and then you got that massive panoramic roof. Then for the sun visors, just a nice simple mirror. All right, so setting off in the Prologue, we're in the sport mode. Not bad acceleration. It's not a fast car, I would say, but it's pretty darn peppy. It gets up to speed really well. Very seamless too. One thing kind of funny, the sport mode button is right next to the park and brake, and sometimes you might accidentally tap that. I wouldn't say sport mode really does all that much. Honestly, it pretty much feels the same, so probably never going to waste your time pressing that button. As far as some normal driving, this is a really comfortable crossover. I think it's really well sized. I fit in here in the driver's seat especially really nicely. Seats are super comfortable, the ventilation on. I mean, it's a nice place to be. You got huge windows, pretty large windshield as well. The right shoulder isn't too bad. The mirror is a little small, but honestly pretty nice and easy to see around. Cameras do a great job in the slow speed, and like most electric cars with the battery in the floorboards, the center of gravity is really low, which makes for a pretty confident car when you're taking turns. Normal driving, this thing is really smooth and quiet. I mean, you just don't really hear anything at 50 miles an hour. So it's a nice car to just daily drive. Going around some turns casually, I mean, steering feels good. It's a pretty effortless, nice car to drive. Now, the little paddle shifter on this left side is actually more of like an electronic brake. So when we get up a little bit quicker, if you basically hold this, it will brake the car. So you can kind of see that a little bit. The charge goes down in the green, and I wasn't putting my foot on the brake or anything. So it's almost like an extra way to hit the brakes a little bit. Not sure when you would really use this, given it does the same thing as the foot brake, but I guess that's one way to just kind of slow down a little bit using your hand, which is a cool touch. Now, like I mentioned, this is built by General Motors, and before I even knew that, just looking around, of course, a lot of the buttons, the way the screen is laid out, you can just kind of tell that. So kind of neat way to do it. Of course, it makes it much more cost effective, given these are very expensive to build. So it's a pretty neat collaboration between the two brands. But the overall driving, it's a nice car. I don't think I really have any driving complaints. It's powerful enough for the average buyer to get up to speed. I mean, you're not gonna have any issues merging onto the highway, getting into fast traffic or anything like that. And the sizing is really good. I mean, it's generally a good size car to where if you want to use this for general crossover style things, family stuff, road trips, you know, I don't really see a problem with that. And the range is pretty decent, you know, almost 300 miles. I still have 170 left on the charge, and we're almost around the 50% mark. So it's pretty economical for an EV. I'd say the range is really good. You hear that slow speed electronic sounds as we get to the slower speeds, of course, for kind of pedestrian safety. But overall, it's a pretty quiet vehicle to drive, nice and smooth. And the shifter doesn't take too much getting used to. You gotta pull it back and down and everything. But once you kind of get used to it, it's really no big deal. As we hit some train tracks in a second, let's see how smooth this is. Yeah, suspension absorbs bumps really well. There's some cars where that is a really uncomfortable thing to go through. So nice to have a solid suspension and just overall a pretty roomy car at the end of the day. Pretty nimble too, just kind of making some maneuvers. So I like how it doesn't have the massive footprint of some other crossovers, and yet you do get a really big interior and a nice power plant to be overall a really good electric car that's simple to use on the inside.